Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the Program Quality and Alignment Committee meeting. We're excited to have you, and hopefully you can all see the slides that we have up for you, and we also have a video today. So we're going to try that and see how that works so you can see who's presenting and who's sharing, and hopefully be a little bit more interactive. So I'm Christina. I will be helping run through the meeting today. Wanted to let everyone know that Letty, who is one of our co-chairs for the Program Quality and Alignment Committee, had a family emergency, so she's not able to join us today. So I'll be walking through her part and then inviting our presenters and speakers to come up as we go through. So a couple notes just to get us started. First of all, thank you all for being here. We've got another packed agenda for you, a lot of really good information about the PDG, the Preschool Development Grant, and what is really encompassing encompassed within the strategic plan and within that needs assessment. So we'll really get to take a deep dive into what's included, what's not included, and sort of what are we thinking about in terms of that work, and some exciting updates to share with you all today. And then we'll have a lot of time for questions and answers. We'll do some wrap up and talk about some next steps for the committee. And then at the end, we'll actually have a drawing for folks who have entered their organizations into our framework website. We'll be drawing for 3 organizations to each win $100. So stay tuned. That'll be exciting towards the end of our meeting today. A couple other logistical notes as we go forward. If you haven't yet, please type in your name and your organization into the chat box. Rather than trying to unmute everyone today, we're going to go through and just read off sort of a roll call of everyone that is joining us, so we make sure that we catch everyone. Also, if you have questions or comments as we go, please use that chat box to enter those, and we'll make sure to capture those and that our presenters see those. If we're not able to get through all of them today, we'll make sure that they get posted on our Program Quality and Alignment, our PDG website. So I sent out a link that had all of the questions that we've received so far and answers from our PDG team. So as you continue to send in those questions, we'll keep that list updated and make sure that you see those on a regular basis. One last note, if you do want to speak or share and would rather do that than writing in a comment, please write in a comment that says unmute me or something like that. And we will try to unmute you and see if we can get that to work this time. All right. Well, before we jump in to the minutes, Amanda, why don't we have ask if you can go through and read off everyone who has entered their name into the chat box. Let us know who's here.
Good morning. We have here Stacy Petty, Jamie Wright Morgan, Don Poe, Teresa Rapston, Erica Newton, Kimberly Rhino, Kristen Lang, starting OEC Monday, congratulations, Christy Kolowska, Brooke Schultz-Horn, Denise Fletcher, Erica Newton, Denise again, Eva Janskowski, Heather Tritton, Amber Bibley, Naomi Aguilar, Emily Busto, Chris Miller, Pamela Harris, Lisa Matter, Kayla Frawley, Melanie Grindelwald, Myra Reed, Hunter Riley, Morgan Stinky, Melissa Coldman, Don Cole, Fulong, Nugent, Terry Grimmeroth, JC Montoya Price, Naomi Steeson, Tim Garcia, Jennifer O'Brien, Cassandra O'Neill, Dave McPhee, Joyce Johnson, Rebecca Wilson, Ida Rhodes, Lisa Satter, Heidi McCaslin, Shannon Lincoln, Lucy Hunter, Kendra John, Sandra Random, Heather Hanna, Stacey Howard, Kwang Tran, Eileen Auburn Bennett, and Nicole Rao.
Wow, that is phenomenal. Thank you all for joining us and being a part of this. I think you can see from that list, and we know there are some others that weren't able to join us, that we have such a great breadth and diversity of experts at the table and as part of this. So just again, a thank you. We're so happy to have all of you as a part of this, and excited to share some updates and really share where we're going next with this committee and with all of you advising on this grant. One piece of business we have is to approve the meeting minutes from March 8th. This is our last meeting. We were in person for that. Rather than doing a voice vote and unmuting folks, I think what we'll do is just ask that if you have changes or edits or anything with the minutes to update, please send those to either Amanda or to myself by the end of the meeting. And so if there are changes, we're happy to make those. And if we don't receive any feedback, then we'll assume that those are approved and get those posted on our website. So just a quick question. Any questions that have come in yet for us, Amanda, at this point? Nope, just everyone's name. All right, wonderful. Well, please utilize that chat box as we go along. And I'm excited to bring up Lindsay Dorneman to share with us an overview on PDG updates.
Good morning. I totally feel like I'm at a news desk or like announcing the daily high school going on. Good morning, everyone. And like Christina said, I'm excited to see the number of individuals who've joined us and the variety of individuals. So we'll dive into it. Again, as you have questions, just make sure to chat to Amanda and she'll make sure that we see those. We do have some question periods at the end, but we can also answer questions as we go through. So first, some overall grant updates. I feel like I'm not looking in the right place. Just look at the camera. Perfect, thank you. So first, staffing updates. So I am excited to announce that I'm transitioning into the PDG director role. So by the end of the month, this will be my new full-time assignment, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work on the grant with our OAC team, as well as with the PQA team.
Yay, Lindsay, congratulations.
Thank you. A little scary, but it'll be okay. We also have filled almost all of our other PDG positions. So Joanna Barrios is currently with the Office of Early Childhood in our Fiscal and Contracts unit. She'll be moving into the role of the PDG Fiscal Contract Specialist. And that'll start Monday. On Monday as well, we'll be joined by two program managers. Kristen Lang will be our program access manager, and Aveline Rodriguez will join us to support transitions as the transitions manager. Kristen, I know you're on the line or on the call. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself. We'll have Amanda try to unmute you.
1 second.
And I apologize for putting you on the spot.
Why don't you give us 1 second?
Okay. Yeah, I can go through a couple more. At the end of the month, on the 29th, we'll have a program assistant. So Teresa Pay will be joining us on that date. On May 6th, we'll be joined by a new early childhood mental health specialist lead. Lisa Schluter, who's done some work in Colorado, is actually returning to the state to support our mental health work. And so we're still working on securing a candidate for our workforce coordinator position, but we hope to be able to announce that within the next few weeks. Are we able to unmute Kristen? Maybe. There we go. Kristen, you're unmuted. Do you just want to say hi to the group?
Kristen, you might be muted on your end if we can't hear you. All right, well, we can leave it open, and then
Yeah.
she's able to jump in.
Yeah, if you just want to say a few words about your background, we would love to share that. Next item is a contract update. So if you've been watching our newsletter and the webpage, you know that all of our RFPs have closed at this point. And so that means that those of us in the office have taken vows of silence as we go through RFP review. So we're currently reviewing those proposals, and we'll be making selections, really mirroring the order in which those RFPs closed. And so by the end of the month, we hope to have those first two contracts assigned. But most of the work will probably happen in May. So we'll be seeing those contracts come out then. We will be announcing the awards for those contracts. So again, keep an eye on the newsletter and on the website, and we'll be sharing that information. And the reason we really want to do that is if you do see opportunities for alignment or building on that work, we want you to be able to connect either with us or the folks doing that work to make sure that we're really maximizing our reach with the grant work. Any questions on that? I think we're good.
Hello?
All right. Hi, Kristen?
Yes. Sorry, I found something that works as a microphone. Can you hear me?
We can. So again, Kristen will be supporting program access for the grant. What that really will mean is she'll be looking at a systems level at, child care licensing, subsidy, quality, public-private partnership, other systems that can really help us maximize parent choice and access to services. So Kristen, would you like to share a few words about your background? And
Sure. So I am an experienced child advocate. I was a teacher in a Title I school for several years, and then most recently have represented children in the child welfare system in Florida as their lawyer, providing holistic representation, and then also overseeing a community collaborative that was focused on ensuring that our 0 to 5-year-old children in care were receiving quality early care and education. So really looking at how to align those two systems. And we were able to make some great changes on the local level and spur some change around the state. So I'm really excited to be joining the Office of Early Childhood in this work, and can't wait to get started on Monday. And I'm looking forward to meeting you all in person sometime soon.
great. Thank you so much, Kristen. We're excited to have you.
Thank you.
So there was a question about which RFP awards may be announced this month. Our expectation is that we should be able to announce the awards under maximizing parent choice and knowledge. So really looking at those communications activities. Again, as you probably know, we're having technical issues. Are we good?
I think we're okay.
Yep. Cool. As you know, contracting takes some time, and because we will have a no-cost extension and some changes to our timeline, we will have to do some negotiations around contracts to update timelines. So our goal, again, is to be able to announce some this month, but there's no guarantee. Are we good?
I think we're good to keep going. Yep.
Okay, great. So regarding that no-cost extension, we are expecting the no-cost extension to go through February 28th of this year. And again, just as I noted, we may be able to extend some of our contracts if necessary. So once we get that no-cost extension, we'll be working with our vendors to identify what those new timelines may look like. We don't, however, really anticipate adding funding to those awards. It's just allowing us to extend the time within the work, or within which we'll do the work. And then finally, request for support. So as we start bringing these vendors on board, we want to make sure that they're set up for success, especially as we look at the needs assessment and strategic plan, given that these are the most comprehensive and our biggest focus for this grant. We really want to be able to get those folks started right away. So 2 things that we're hoping to collect from this group are, again, the needs assessment and strategic plans. So we've extended the deadline to submit those to our office to May 15th. The OEC will actually be going through those plans just to make sure that they fit within the criteria of what we'll be doing for work. But we have, I think, about 15 needs assessments and strategic plans right now. And everything we're getting is really great, really helpful. As we've been going through, we're starting to already identify some gaps and some opportunities. So again, continue to send those to us. They're just really giving us a great foundation for the work.
Lindsay, can you clarify if you're looking for like an organization-specific strategic plan, a needs assessment, or a regional or a state? What would be most helpful?
Yep, so definitely state level, and we'll be doing a lot of collection within our Office of Early Childhood programs and partnering with other state agencies on that. But we also are interested in some of the things happening at a local and regional level. And so don't be afraid to send something if it feels like it's only impacting your county or your community, because again, it gives us a really good understanding of what's happening. One of the things we're excited about is it helps us to identify some local innovations that we may be able to explore more. So really the broad spectrum, we're open to receiving and looking at those. So the second part is you'll be receiving a link after this meeting to submit information around meeting dates. So what we're looking for is really identifying existing opportunities to connect with parents and caregivers and early care and learning providers. We want to take advantage of meeting people where they're at and leveraging what already exists. So if you have meetings, conferences, opportunities happening between the end of May through July, we want to learn what those are, and if there's an opportunity for us to bring our team in to support activities that range from research around communications to strategic planning and the needs assessment. Some guidance around what we're looking for, especially around parents and caregivers. We of course want broadest representation possible, but we do have a few populations that are called out within the grant that we do want to try to focus on, and that includes fathers, families experiencing homelessness, families and caregivers in rural areas, and parents and caregivers that speak languages outside of English and Spanish. So if you have groups that are convening, we'll create that form, plug in your information. We can't guarantee we'll get to everybody, but this will give us a really great start in terms of planning that outreach once we have vendors on board.
And Lindsay, I think built into the grant, we do have some funding to be able to have folks travel to communities outside of the Denver metro area.
Yeah, definitely. Especially because we do have a rural focus, we want to make sure that we're having that geographical representation. So we will be traveling. We do have resources to come to people statewide. So again, any meeting you can think of that would support this, feel free to share that with us. So a couple questions. It's a small, Nicole says, it's a small time frame and we may miss out on people due to summer break. Can we expand to August? It's likely we can. The one timing issue is that our renewal grant application may drop in August. So we want to make sure that we're reaching as many groups as we can prior to August, so we're prepared when that funding announcement drops. But as we learn more, we can definitely extend that. We're also extending the timeline for needs assessment and strategic planning, so there are or will be opportunities to continue some of this work. But again, we're really trying to hit that August 1st target. And Joyce asked if we're able to provide Spanish language translation for meetings. Yes, we do have an expectation that our vendors will be able to provide those services. If not, the OEC would have resources to support that as well. As we all know, it's difficult to connect with those families if we're not providing the resources and they're not going to show up. So we'll make every effort we can to support that. Okay, great. So we have an updated timeline. The reason we updated our timeline was really to be reflective of that no-cost extension when we received that in September. So as you can see, in April, again, our focus is really building that infrastructure for the grant. So we, as I mentioned, have hired staff. We'll be doing that onboarding, and then we'll be selecting vendors. Next month will be a really fun month for our team and really crazy month for our team as we begin to launch the remainder of our activities and secure those final contractors. June and July really will be focused on stakeholder outreach, some internal planning as we look towards that August 1 timeframe for the renewal application. We have heard through other meetings that the federal partners have started working on the year 2 to 4 applications, so it's promising that it'll come in August. So keep your fingers crossed. September and October, we're still looking at using that time frame to review and finalize the strategic plan. However, given the no-cost extension, we'll have some flexibility and can push the submission of the strategic plan and needs assessment into November if necessary. So it's nice to have a little bit of cushion if we need that additional time. And then in December, we should still hear about that year 2 award and hopefully be able to launch those activities in January. Any questions on? Okay, great. So now, move to our next slide. So knowing that we have some new, oh, I want to go back one. Sorry, Amanda. Knowing that we have some new folks on the call, I just want to review again the key purpose of the preschool development grants and the activities that we need to complete within the next 10 months. And so the first one is developing that strategic plan based on a needs assessment. And today that's really the focus of our meeting. And I know that it's a lot of information sharing that we're doing today and not a lot of engagement. But we really want to make sure that everybody within PQA has a shared understanding of what the requirements are for the strategic plan as well as the needs assessment so that collectively we can work towards those requirements. One of the fears that we have and that we're experiencing within the office is that we have so many great ideas that sometimes everything gets too big and we're really operating outside of the scope of what we're required to do. And so as an office and as a subcommittee, it's always important to kind of go back to those requirements and make sure that we have that shared understanding and we know what we're working towards. So Heather and Nakia will join us for that work. And then also really looking at that efficient use of federal, state, local, non-government resources, blending and braiding of funding, updating our infrastructure so that we are operating more efficiently. So I'm, again, excited that Kristen's joining us because that will be a big focus of her work. Encouraging partnerships. So a lot of what the team in the office has been doing and what we're excited about through PQA is that we're already seeing some new membership or new partnerships forming. And so again, thank you for your continued participation and patience. But once we get into May and June, we really are excited to see this work really start to formulate and understand how everyone plays a role in this work. Improving transitions. So Aveline, and I don't know if she's been able to join yet, but Aveline Rodriguez as our transitions manager will be focusing on the transitions of children from pre-K settings into kindergarten. In future years, we'll be looking at expanding that work, but given our time frame and the focus of the grant, we really feel like that's the transition we want to spend most of our time on, and so she'll be really helpful in that work. So most of you will probably hear and interact with Aveline around that. And then, of course, maximizing parent choice and knowledge. All of these activities are working towards that goal, and then we'll be supporting it through our communications work. Okay. And then if you want to hit the next slide, Amanda. And then as we start thinking about strategic plan and needs assessment, I just want to remind folks of what our key outcomes are and our vision. And again, it's just making sure that all children are ready when entering kindergarten. And we hope to achieve that by making sure families have access to high quality formal early care and education settings, that families who choose informal settings have the ability to make sure those settings are enhanced and providing services that really meet the needs of the child. And finally, that we're really aligning and coordinating what currently exists to be able to maximize access to services. So with that, if there's any questions.
Give us just a few minutes if folks have any questions or clarifications for Lindsay before we move on.
And Heather Tritton wrote that it would be nice to call out home visiting within partnership statement. I agree, and that's certainly something we can do. That's a really good reminder. Okay, well, as we wait, I'm going to call up Miss Nakia Collins. And so Nakia is, as you may know, a research and evaluation analyst in the Office of Early Childhood, and she'll be taking the lead on managing our needs assessment work. And so she's kind of heading the vendor recruitment right now, or vendor procurement, but she'll really have an eye on these requirements and making sure we meet them. So welcome to the news desk.
Thank you. Thank you. So we'll just already. Okay, we'll just go on and kick it off. We wanted to give an overview of the needs assessment and the needs assessment process, what we're looking for, and what we will have to eventually report on and produce for our federal partners as a requirement for the grant. There's a lot of detail in the funding announcement in the FOA. It goes into, it's very, I won't say, it's kind of specific in a broad way as to what is required. And our application did a fantastic job of digging into it and kind of capturing and covering all of those things that are called out in the funding announcement. We have yet to know the specific reporting requirements and scoring criteria for our needs assessment, but we have received some guidance from our federal partners in addition to what is included in the FOA. And so I'll just give you an overview of what that looks like, and we'll open it up for questions. I'll be piggybacking a lot off of some things that Lindsay called out, but specifically calling it out based on what was written in the application. So we were tasked with conducting and updating periodic needs assessment to make sure we are capturing the needs of Colorado children and families, and doing so across population and across geographic area. They are the goal. In some ways, we've been describing it as a no wrong door policy. So we want to make sure that we want to maximize parent choice and families have access to the services that they want and that they need. And they are not limited to a geographic area or a particular population. So I'll go into a little bit more about what that's going to look like and how that's going to come out in the needs assessment. Next slide, please. The next 3 slides list out exactly what it reads in the FOA. And so I'm not going to go into each one in detail, but there are just some, just calling out the high points. So there was really attention. They were paying special attention to the populations that we serve and the geographical component. I want to highlight some things around the population. There were populations that were specifically called out when in defining vulnerable or underserved, specifically children and families in rural areas. That was called out in the announcement as something that we may want to pay attention to. Care and services, well, early childhood care and education. I'm getting that ECCE acronym together. Early childhood care and education for infants and toddlers, as well as support around families and caregivers of infants and toddlers, was called out in the application as something that we've been noticing. And we want to kind of test that theory through the needs assessment. We also called out, I believe, tribal populations and special needs populations. So we really want to kind of have this, the word is escaping me, but we want to make sure we are inclusive and can capture the needs of Colorado. So essentially, we are looking for the needs assessment to do 3 main things, and it's listed out in 5 questions. We'll go more into the, we'll talk more about the 5 questions a little bit later on, but the 3 main things we want to identify, well, we want to describe the services that we have, to whom they are provided, and where they are provided. And so we are already doing some great work and providing great services for families. We need to kind of get a baseline and see what that looks like across the state. The second step then is to identify the gaps in programming by geographic area and by population. So you don't know what you don't know. And part of the awesomeness of the needs assessment is we have the opportunity to start to dig into those things that we don't know, these questions that we have always been asking. We now have the opportunity to start to kind of address them and answer them and respond to them, and then use that information to design a strategic plan so that we can more fully meet the needs of Colorado's children and families. The foundational premise in identifying these gaps and figuring out where services are needed and to whom is to kind of figure out what should be provided. So we know what we are providing, and then we have to kind of define what should be provided. A foundational principle in identifying what should be provided, that should come directly from the mouths of the people who are receiving and who need these services. And so there will be a huge focus in the needs assessment in asking families, asking parents and children what it is they do need, so that we can then use that information to bump it up against what's being provided and identify those gaps. And Lindsay mentioned that will, those stakeholder calls and data collection, we're really going to need your support in finding out where to ask these questions and finding the venues to ask families what it is they need, because we'd really like for the answer to that question to be family driven. So the kinds of, I won't get too much in, well, we'll see. I think that some more questions may arise, but we'll keep going and see what happens. And that third thing that we really want to be able to do is, once we identify the baseline and then we identify the gaps based on what should be there, provide some information around why these gaps why these gaps exist. And that will also go into informing the strategic plan. So once we figure out what we have, what we should have, where the gaps are, we can start to figure out why this is happening and be strategic about how to target those responses and those outcomes. Calling it out. Okay, can we move forward a couple more slides? Or just, and so the next 3 slides, you'll see needs assessment requires announcements in slide 1, 2, and 3. Those, the 3 main areas, and what we'll talk about on the in a few minutes, the 5 questions, do a great job in capturing those all of those things listed on those 3 slides. They call out specifically parent choice. They call out specifically those geographical and population questions. And then another one that I wanted to point out that they call out on in needs assessment requirements 3 is the transition supports. They really want us to describe the transition supports to kind of highlight what Lindsay mentioned earlier. So if we move to the next slide, to our approach, yes, excellent. So our approach to the needs assessment, the first step is to engage a vendor. The vendor will be responsible for conducting the needs assessment, which will include, and this is a key component in identifying those gaps, data collection from parents, families, and stakeholders. And I'm gonna keep repeating it to reiterate, we really need your support in identifying those populations so that we can find out what we don't know, because you don't know what you don't know. And so when Lindsay sends the link, we'll have you'll have the opportunity to submit those regular meetings and places and venues where our vendors, and we can kind of engage parents and families and find out what they need. And any information that you may, so there was a question about Spanish language translators. If there's anything else like that you think that we kind of need to keep on our radar and be aware of, please let us know. We want to be prepared when we start to engage these families and make sure we're ready to take in what they have to offer.
Yeah, I can add a section to that survey that addresses any requirements or needs in order to facilitate that meeting.
And specifically, okay, and so specifically we called out the populations just to reiterate those examples: tribal populations, rural populations, special needs, infants, pods. We know that we would like to get more information around those populations in those areas, but if there are also some other ones that we're not mentioning, and you say, yes, this is something that you guys want to consider, please feel free. So don't feel limited in the ones that we are calling out. And then the last thing that I would request is to continue to submit those needs assessments and those evaluation reports. And if you have a question as to whether or not you think it'll be useful, submit it anyway, and we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out from there. So we're going through and we're looking at those. They have been extremely useful and extremely helpful and helping. And we're kind of putting together a database, a dossier to provide to our vendors so that we can hit the ground running and start to get this good work happening.
Great.
That's where I am. Are there any questions?
Anne Bruce asked if there's any intentional outreach to military families. So they aren't specifically called out in the funding announcement or requirements, but if there are opportunities to reach out to those families, feel free to include them in that form. Joyce asked if using the term childcare providers, if we're including informal providers as a population who should be included, 100% yes. Because of the goal within the grant to make sure that we're reaching that population, any opportunity we have to connect with them would be appreciated. I think that's one part where the office itself struggles, is identifying those providers and finding out where they're at. So if you can help us, we would love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Kayla asked if we are going to be reaching out to family service workers and Head Start programs to gain knowledge on family insight and what families would like and need. I believe, Heather? Yes. Heather is smiling and nodding her head, and so yes. Yeah, and that's, we've had a lot of conversations about Head Start programs and how successful they are in family engagement, and so we definitely want to leverage that success and that ability to reach out to their families.
Okay. No.
I can just put in a plug for everyone here. This is a really great way to make sure that your voices and your communities are heard. So you're all invited to be and asked to serve on this committee because of the various roles that you have in the community. So just an ask to really think about what are the ways that we can connect with the families and with the people that you work with, because now is the time to get the information and the needs and the desires and you know, really what do we want the state to look like. This is laying the foundation for building that strategic plan, which we'll hear more about in a minute. So just an ask, really, really be thoughtful about how can we all play a role in supporting this work.
Yeah, and I would say this group will help us think outside the box too. I know we have our friends from the business community, and so even if you have a meeting scheduled within this time frame, we would love to hear from you because we know you guys have needs to support your employees, and childcare is a big recruiting tool, and if it doesn't exist, we know businesses are struggling, and so that's another opportunity to really connect and plug into this work. Noemi, I'm sorry, I just know I butchered your name, asked if we would like to offer access to migrant parents and families when appropriate. Absolutely. Yep, so definitely make sure that as you're pulling together those groups that you're letting us know, because they are an important and I think underrepresented population in some of these pieces of work. So yes. And we also say access is always an important challenge for highly mobile families. Yes, it is. So again, definitely, if you can connect us to those migrant families, we would love to be able to explore that.
And for those, for the suggestions that you're offering here, I've been taking notes on those, but please submit them to the link. There are going to be some other questions that are asked on the link. So we have a note of them, but also if you can submit them on the link that Lindsay provides, and we can have it all kind of together. And
yeah. I mean, I think the comments that we're getting is telling us there's a lot of populations out there that need us to reach out to them.
Absolutely.
That we may not have talked about previously. So again, this is, like Christina said, the opportunity to make sure that those voices are heard and represented.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Now, Heather, I'm actually going to move, so I'm not like, do you want on camera? So for those who don't know, Heather Craiglow is our Head Start Collaboration Director for the state. She will be taking a lead on the transitions work along with Aveline, and she has also been shepherding our strategic planning efforts.
Yeah, great. Thanks, everyone. Good morning. Heather Craiglow here. So like Lindsay had mentioned, I'm going to provide an overview of our strategic planning process. And so, so what does done look like for us? And here's what we're coming up with. So from our, can you flip this slide? Oh, it is up. Okay, great. All right. There's all sorts of cameras, and I mean, it does feel like I am on a news show this morning. I got to wear my blazer.
Well, we need a coffee mug. That's what we're missing.
Right. So, there we go. Thank you. Thank you so much. So done. Strategic plan, what does that look like? It looks like that we have developed a strategic plan that recommends collaboration, coordination, and quality improvement activities, which are going to include activities to improve children's transition from early childhood care and education programs into elementary school. Nikia mentioned this earlier as Lindsay. We're talking about that transition piece from that pre-K space to kindergarten, along with other existing programs in the state and local education agencies. And you may have heard us use that term, the mixed delivery system. And again, just to review what that references as it relates to our federal partners, is a system of early childhood care and education services that are delivered through a combination of programs, providers, and settings, such as Head Start, home visiting, licensed family, and center-based child care programs, public schools, and other community-based organizations that is supported through a combination of public and private funds. All right, next slide. So a few points that we need to cover as it relates to strategic plan requirements, in which we also need to report out on quarterly and at the end of this grant period. So we will outline the goals of strategic plan as is reflected in our federal guidance. And many, many, many thanks. Again, Nikki already mentioned this, but many thanks to those of you who sent in plans already. So thank you so much for that. It's just really cool seeing folks, the magic happening at the local levels, and then you sharing that with us here at the state. And it will also really just expedite the work that our vendors will be also engaging in. Continue to send us those plans, especially if it's on your to-do list for today, Friday, right before you're ready to leave. I know you have a little to-do list, and you've been meaning to do it all week or since our last PQA meeting. So just a reminder, go ahead, just upload those for us. And if your file is too big, feel free just to send it to Lindsay or myself or Nakia, and we will make sure that it gets to the right places in our systems. We need to ensure the plan has the ability to be implemented in subsequent years as well. And we've been told a few times that we are really ambitious with the work that we do here in Colorado. So with your help, we just want to make sure that your voices are also heard, your family voices are heard. So Kayla, thank you for mentioning Head Start and the family engagement perspective also. Okay, let's see here. Go to our next slide. The second point that we're going to be required to look at is what recommendations will be surfacing that will increase the partnerships that are going to be really bold and innovative for implementation for those subsequent years. And Lindsay already mentioned the partnerships that we're already establishing, and folks that have come to the table that we may not have met before, although do have a really important piece within the system of our mixed delivery system for children and families. And so a few questions, like how will we describe what we propose will increase the overall participation of children accessing our programs? Again, a very critical piece for us. And are we aware of resources in our community and our surrounding communities? And so just for a moment, I'd like to channel my childhood favorite TV shows of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and Sesame Street. Like, who are those people in your neighborhood? And have we talked to them? Do we know who they are that have resources that we can utilize as well? And depending on our locations throughout our state, your neighbor could be a really great distance away from you, where you're providing services for your children and families. So others, they could be literally right down the hallway or beside the next cubicle if you're in a cubicle situation. So it's really important just to recognize who is out there that we can utilize and really just think about how we best use our resources effectively. And thinking about the point of what are we already doing and or where can we do better to increase that overall participation of the children in our programs and better utilize our resources I had mentioned. Okay, so next slide. The following is our approach to meeting this crucial deliverable. And as Lindsay mentioned earlier, the final vendor selection is underway, and we are optimistic to identify a vendor in the next few weeks, perhaps beginning by the beginning of May. Again, no promises, but we are optimistic. And through our identified vendor, we will develop a 5-year strategic plan to focus on utilizing the needs assessment, as Nikki had mentioned, aligning existing state and local strategic plans and frameworks that you have. We're going to build on those existing initiatives and foundational systems broadly, including stakeholders across the mixed delivery system. So again, if you recognize that someone is not here, please invite them, send a note to Christina, and again, we'll get them connected. And then increasing that engagement in that system-wide transition planning. So with transition planning, we recognize that many of your programs and organizations provide families with what to expect as they move throughout those various learning environments. And we are in the midst of creating another JOT form, the ones that you are using to fill out your strategic plan and needs assessment, to capture work that is currently supporting children as they transition into kindergarten primarily. So stay tuned for that. And like Lindsay had mentioned, Aveline Rodriguez will really be supporting this work fully, and then also engaging with our vendors and just bringing all of these pieces together for us. So I will pause, and we have a few notes coming in. Okay, great.
Great. So any questions regarding this activity or grant activity overall?
I think now if we can move into the section around questions. So now is the time to ask your questions, to ask for more clarification. You got a lot of information. You've gotten a lot of information over the past couple meetings that we've had. What else should we be thinking about as we're bringing our vendors on board? We'd just love to hear from you all. What are you thinking about right now?
Yeah. You did an amazing job there. Very little need to
now back to you, Lindsay.
Yeah. Well, throughout the webinar, feel free to submit questions. Those that we aren't able to address during this time, we'll definitely follow up with. And now they're coming in.
There we go.
So Kayla asked, how much is teacher pay looked at or appropriate to consider as far as innovative strategies? I know it's a hard conversation. I particularly wonder about this for high school teachers, or Head Start, I'm sorry, different frame of mind. So Kayla, we are actually engaging, we'll be employing an early childhood workforce coordinator who will be focused on retention, recruitment, and compensation for early childhood professionals.
Yeah,
to speak to that, Heather?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Kayla. Also, just to add that many of you who are on this call today have been in spaces where we're talking about the workforce. And so if you would like to learn more and plug in and have your voice elevated, we would encourage you to attend the Early Childhood Professional Development Advisory, or ECPD advisory meetings. And we'll have Amanda send out a link for our next meeting and location so that you can be part of those conversations. And again, we also have a Colorado Workforce Early Childhood 2020 plan that has a variety of goals and activities in which, again, is super ambitious, and that we will, with the support of our workforce coordinator, be elevating a lot of those activities.
Yeah, and we have been recently contacted by Richard Gonzalez, who is our federal program officer, and they're actually reaching out to Colorado as one of several PDG states to talk about the work that we're currently doing around workforce and just learn a little bit more about that, to collect some of the data that we've been able to collect as a state. And so we do think that workforce probably will surface in that year 2 to 4 grant. And so we're really excited that we're taking a proactive step now to look at it so that we're prepared when that drops in August. So Megan asked, if my organization does not have a needs assessment, how can we be involved? So Megan, I would say again, if you have groups or if you have an interest in us reaching out to you around that needs assessment, where it would be valuable, definitely once we send out that link, let us know or contact Christina, Nakia, or myself, and we'll be able to plug you in. Also know that by participating in the Program Quality and Alignment Subcommittee, that we'll be bringing this information to this group to have some discussions around that information and to begin to really start thinking about strategies to address what we've learned in that needs assessment. Christina asked if, because infants and toddlers are so underserved in our state, how are we going to prioritize? Again, that comes through the needs assessment. I think the assumptions there, and will probably be proven right, that the needs of infants and toddlers will be pretty dominant within the needs assessment. And so through the data, we'll be able to prioritize, but also the state legislature they haven't passed Senate Bill 63, have they yet?
It was just passed on third reading in the second chamber, so through the House. So we're anticipating the governor to sign that. That is, just for reference for folks, Senate Bill 63 was an infant and toddler strategic plan. So really the legislature saying, take a look at what infant and toddler and family homes look like. What are the barriers to that? How can we support that? And come back with recommendations on how we can do a better job supporting this. And so we will certainly be working hand in hand with the needs assessment work and PDG. Within that legislation, it directs the Department of Human Services in partnership with the Early Childhood Leadership Commission. And so there's a great link with the ECLC and with our work here at PQA. So we'll continue to make sure that that's aligned, but that we really do have a focus on that infant and toddler space.
Yeah, if I can just also add, Christina, with the work that you and JC are leading up within Raise Colorado, again, that group and the subcommittees or subcommittees from those groups are also we're touching base with.
So Stacy asked if there will be a focus on making sure rural communities are represented as much as urban. Absolutely, and my pen just ran away. So the federal legislation for the preschool development grant has a strong focus on increasing that access in rural communities. And so the year 2 activities we expect will need to point largely to those areas. So absolutely, that's our guidance. And we just want to make sure that we're effective in doing that. And Stacy also asked if there'll be, if we'll be looking at different ways to fund early childhood. Yes. So again, really looking at that funding, not only how we can braid and blend, but also if there's untapped resources that would allow us to maximize access, we want to be able to explore those and be able to implement plans around that.
I'll read, there's a compliment to the team here for everything that's been accomplished so far in a very short amount of time. I think that they're feeling it. It is a lot of work in a short amount of time. So kudos to the 3 of you. Thank you for being here and sharing this.
Thank you. The scary part is we just started. So Joyce is concerned about metrics for measuring success, especially in terms of children's participation in the mixed delivery system. Will the only measure be the number of children now attending formal care settings? And if not, what other metric will be used? So Joyce, that's a really good question. And we don't want to narrow our focus to just children in formal care settings. We know in Colorado that a majority of children under the age of 5 are not in formal care settings, and that we have a responsibility to ensure that their needs are getting met to support them as they go through those early years and then transition into kindergarten. In terms of metrics, I think that's something that will be worked out. Or Nikia, do you want to talk? I know. Yeah, definitely come up here and speak into the phone. This is why we have a research and evaluation analyst.
So this is a great question, and it is definitely something that we want to be very, very clear about. The second goal, overall goal, is to kind of identify supports and provide supports for children who are in those informal settings. And that includes supports to caregivers, that supports to parents, supports to family, friend, and neighbor care. So that is specifically called out as a goal something that we are going to look into. And so it's not just limited to those early childhood care and education formal settings. We really want to call out those informal settings and other types of supports that children need, and providing those for families and caregivers. Mm-hmm. And we'll figure out the metrics as we go. We'll be guided by what we learn. Mm-hmm. We'll be able to better define those metrics as we go, and we find out along with the in conjunction with the vendor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if I can also just add that we are connected to a nationwide training technical assistance network that other states may have similar questions that they want to answer, and ways that, again, utilizing our resources most effectively, we'll be able to say, hey, this is what's happening in Illinois or California.
Great. So Teresa says she would love to figure out a way to support programs and home providers as they enroll children with special needs. So, and she provides a few examples of how this has been done in the past. Yes, Teresa, so we, as we think about our underserved populations, I think that children with special needs are identified in that. So again, as these issues arise and are identified through the needs assessment, we definitely want to find ways to address it. Heather, she's concerned that the plan will focus solely on formal child care settings, and that throughout the planning, it seems like home visiting, FFN, and other parts are being left out. How do we ensure a broad approach is taken within needs assessment and strategic planning? So as we look back to the definition of mixed delivery system, we do see an inclusion in that informal care and those other components of caring for children outside of, let's say, licensed child care. I think the really important thing to remember is that the needs assessment really has an emphasis on parent voice, right? And we know that not all parents are choosing licensed or formal child care. And so through that needs assessment, we do expect that these settings will be identified and that we will be including them in our plan. I would also say that our outcome number 2 really addresses these programs in these caregiving settings. And so we do call them out and recognize them and want to make every effort we can to ensure that environments are enriched no matter where children are at.
This is Christina. If I can just make a plug again for this committee. So again, you all are representing the populations that you know, within the grant are called out, that the ECLC felt like are important partners to have at the table. So we're going to rely on you all too to let us know where we should be, what are the things we should be looking at, what are the communities, what are the meetings we can go to, and keep bringing those to the table. So the question is very valid, and let's keep using PQA and the work product that we'll be doing over the next several months to continue to push on that and make sure that this really is a broad plan that serves all of our families in a wide variety of environments.
Yeah, to echo Christina, you know, we were really intentional in making sure that PQA was broad and inclusive. And the reason for that is it really mirrors our outcomes and our efforts around this, and the recognition that the system is much bigger than formal early care and learning. And so to the extent possible, everybody, we want to have some representation within the framework of the strategic plan and needs assessment. So just making sure we have those requirements in mind, but that we're plugging each of these programs and systems into that the best we can. Okay.
All right, that is the end of our questions so far.
Okay.
If folks still have more questions, please do feel free to add those in. And we'll continue to go through those over the next few minutes. A couple of things coming in. Just give us 1 second to look at the questions and comments coming in. Just so folks are aware, there's some comments coming in sort of echoing that need to make sure that we are being broad in our thinking about what care looks like in the care settings that we're investigating and including in our strategic plan. So thank you for continuing to share that, and just would ask that you continue to bring those up as we move forward to make sure that we keep it at the forefront of our minds, and like I said, that a plan really addresses all the environments where kids are. Wonderful.
Great. Before we go, thank you, Amanda and Christina. I love the new format. It's fun to be able to connect in this way.
Yeah.
Thank you for setting this up.
Well, thank you all. I will jump back in front of the news camera here, and but if you have more questions, please continue to add those in. All right. Well, thank you all for those great questions and for participating today. We'll move into the wrap up. I have a few things I wanted to share and sort of think about where we're moving next. So over the past few meetings, we've really gotten a deep dive from our presenters that you saw today around a solid foundation. So what is PDG? What are the components of it? And where are we going in terms of this next year-long project? So it's really exciting that over the next month or two, you'll start to be introduced to all the vendors. We're thrilled to be able to bring on our new staff and have them join us soon. And I really want us all to be prepared and start thinking that this committee will start to make a shift from hearing information and sort of understanding the guardrails and the scope of this work to responding to work coming in, to providing meetings, for being out in the field and for having us be able to come out and to learn from you, to be making recommendations, to make suggestions, to bring products to us. So I think that you'll really see a shift from hearing information to now recommendations and suggestions and guidance over the next several months. So thank you for sticking with us, for being so invested in this process, and get ready, because we've got a lot of work to do over the next couple months to continue the great work that's happening. One thing that we talked about at I believe our last meeting or the meeting before was around the idea of having a few summits. And so summits thinking about other meetings, separate meetings that could be broader, that could bring other people into this work to make sure that everyone has an understanding, or at least a chance to hear from our great presenters about where are we, what's the process so far, and provide input on where we're going next. We will continue to have these PQA meetings throughout the year, but we did write in the ability to have 2 larger summits. Those might be on weekends, they might be in the evenings, but really a chance to be more inclusive and make sure that folks are able to come to the table and learn. So we don't have yet a schedule for when those will be. We've tentatively thought about something in maybe summer, in August, to say this is what we've done so far, and we're shifting to that new application for the next couple of years of funding. That was one idea. We've thought about maybe something later in the end of the year, towards November or December, when we really have our strategic plan and needs assessments done, to think about, with or without funding for the next couple of years, how do we move this work forward together? So, you know, we don't have necessarily what those need to look like, and those are just ideas that have been thrown out, but I want to ask for volunteers from this committee that want to get in a room and really think about what's going to be most valuable, and how do we engage with people who aren't at the table, who we really want to make sure that they understand what's happening and continue. So this is sort of above and in addition to all the stakeholder and community work that you've heard about today. So if you're interested in brainstorming or thinking about what can we use these summits for, please either share your names through the chat box today, otherwise email Amanda or I, and we'll start pulling together some phone calls or some group meetings to get working on those. So just to check in, Amanda, have there been any other questions or anything from folks on the grant?
Nope, we just have a lot of people volunteering.
Wonderful, great.
You.
Thank you. Please keep sharing your names in the chat box if you're interested in participating in that work. All right, well, now we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk quickly about the Early Childhood Colorado Framework. Amanda, if you can jump to the next slide so we can give folks a picture of what this looks like. So hopefully all of you are aware of the Early Childhood Colorado Framework. That is our state's shared vision for aligning services. Really, what is it that all children and all families need so that kids grow up in an environment where they are valued, healthy, and thriving. Over the past probably 2 years now, the Commission has worked with partners to take that document and create an interactive website that's based on those outcomes and based on the domains of the framework, but really allows organizations like all of you to share how your programs help advance the framework and what it is that you're doing in your communities that helps to move those outcomes forward across the different domains. So what you see on the screen right now is just a shot of what the homepage looks like. It's earlychildhoodframework.org. The green box on the left is where you can go to download the framework, to get the materials. We have in English and Spanish available, all kinds of stuff there. The share button is where you would go to enter your information. So if you haven't done so, I would really encourage all of you to go ahead and do that. It just takes a few minutes. You register your organization, and then you get a confirmation email back, and that allows you to go back in and then add in all your programs. So then if you click on the Learn button, that's where all of those programs show up. And so Amanda, if you can jump to the next slide, this is a quick screenshot of what that looks like when you click on the Learn button. And you can see a couple programs on there. You can sort and filter by the different components of the framework, by the area that's served, by the community or county that's served, all kinds of different things in there that you can sort and filter by to really get a sense of what's happening in your community. This is a tool that we will be sharing with the governor's office and with legislators very soon to give them a resource to look in their communities and their counties and say, what does the system of early childhood look like, and where are the gaps in my community that either at a regional or state level we can work to address together. So I would highly encourage you, if you haven't put your information in there, all of you have a very strong interest in early childhood and work towards the framework outcomes. So please do go in and enter and share your work. But now for the exciting parts, anyone who had registered their organization and gone back in and put programs in, we are going to hold a drawing right now for 3 organizations to win $100 each. So we put everyone's name into this bag. So let me go through and grab a couple real quick here. And we'll be announcing our winners in real time. So hopefully some of them are on this website or on the webinar today. All right, first one I will pull out. See who we have. Awesome, Healthy Childcare Colorado. So this is an organization that supports improved health and safety and well-being for early childhood programs. I see a woohoo that just came through, so awesome. Congratulations to Healthy Childcare Colorado. Let's pick another one. Great, Sangre de Cristo Preschool. So this is a high quality level 4, congratulations, level 4 preschool program in the San Luis Valley. So congratulations to you. And one more, let's see who we got. Oh, great. This one is for Special Kids Special Care. This is an organization that works with families of premature babies and infants that are medically fragile and help support the families. So fantastic, 3 great organizations. Thank you. I hope all of you are on the website or on the webinar. Otherwise, we'll be contacting you to share with you soon. So for everyone, like I mentioned, who is on the webinar, if you haven't put your programs on yet, please go ahead and do so. We'll likely have another drawing coming up in summer. So if your programs are in there, you will be entered into that drawing for a later time. So we'll share more details with you later, but please do go ahead and register at that earlychildhoodframework.org website and then go back in and add your program. All right. Now I think we are at the part of the meeting for our public comments and member updates. And so I know that folks are still muted at this point. If you have anything that you want to share with the members of the committee, please go ahead and take a few minutes to either type that in or type into the chat box for Amanda to unmute you, and we'll see if we can get the unmute to work. So anything you want to share with the group, anything coming up, any announcements, anything that would be beneficial for the group to hear. And let's give folks a minute or two to share that. Not seeing anything come through yet. Reminder, if you do want to share, don't use the raise your hand function. Just type into the chat box that you want to be unmuted, and then we'll be able to do that. Oh, wonderful. Lisa, we're going to try and unmute you, so hold on one second.
Wonderful, thank you. This is.
Oh, we lost you. 1 second, Lisa.
There I go. I saw the little red one. I'll watch it.
Okay.
Lisa Matter from Expanding Quality in Infant Toddler Care in the Office of Early Childhood. And I did also want to just share out to this group. You mentioned, I think Heather mentioned the work of Raise Colorado, the Prenatal Infant Toddler Coalition. We have a little subgroup, one of those little subcommittees, small but mighty, is the Infant Toddler Child Care Task Force, and there is interest in that. That group is also focused on not just licensed care, but all infant and toddler care where it happens across the state. And we do have a meeting this afternoon at 2 o'clock, which is also a web-based meeting. And if anyone is interested in joining that group, you can reach out to myself or to JC or Christina with Raise Colorado, and they'll connect you with us and want to listen in and participate in a focused piece of work that's focused on infant and toddler care. So we're excited to hear if anyone is interested. Thanks for unmuting me. You can take me back off now. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. And yeah, feel free to contact Lisa Matter or JC Montoya Price with the Children's Campaign, or Christina Walker from Clayton Early Learning. Those two are leading the Raise Colorado work. Or feel free to connect with Amanda or I and let us know that you want those contacts, and we'll get you connected. All right, one note that just popped up, the Denver Preschool Program President and CEO job posting is public. So for those of you who knew Jennifer Landrum, she left that position a little bit ago, and now the job is posted. So take a look at that on the dpp.org website. One other update I see from Healthy Child Care Colorado, one of those framework winners today. The new website, our new website hosts a training calendar that has lots of child care health consultants are posting their upcoming trainings and programs for child care homes. There's a lot of questions from folks about where to go to get those health trainings, and so if that's a need that you have, you can check it out at healthychildcareco.org. All right, I don't see any other comments coming in. All right, thank you for those updates. Those are fantastic. So I guess to close out the meeting today, one reminder, our next meeting will be in person. We do every other meeting by webinar or in person, and so the next one will be at Mile High United Way. That's over on Park Avenue in Denver. And we will also have the webinar component available. So we hope you can join us in one of those two ways. And following this meeting, we'll send out the links to the strategic plan and needs assessment links, as well as the form that we talked about around sharing meetings or groups or organizations that are pulling people together so that we can start organizing our calendars and find ways to come out and visit with people. One note, I just got a question here about updating the calendar. So we will send a revised calendar invite after the meeting, letting folks know that the next meeting is at Mile High United Way. So thank you for that reminder. All right. Well, thank you all very much for joining us today. We'll get done a little bit early. Hope you have a wonderful Friday. Thanks, everyone.